into a Friday. You know, there's video that's circulating around the internet right now. Specifically, the X machine is where I saw it. All right, 3-2. That's where I saw it, but now it's on ESPN right behind you, co-host Paul Charchian, where there's video of Atlanta Falcons owner Arthur Blank chatting with Falcons general manager Terry Fontenot, perhaps wondering who orchestrated that beautiful song, Move On Up. I mean, he's asking him about, well, who did the percussion? It was spectacular. And tell me more about Curtis Mayfield. I mean, I think the owner of the Atlanta Falcons is as clued into Curtis Mayfield's Move On Up as he was to what was going to happen at Pick 8 last night. But that later, this now. He's Paul Charchi, and I'm Paul Allen, the master mixer of the Monday montage on a Friday. Great to have the montages back. Is our producer Eric Nordquist, and we welcome you to the Friday football feast. I'm just going to lay it out like this. You guys can talk it out all you want. What in the heck happened last night? We're going to make this segment Vikes Bites, and by the way, Vikes Bites is provided by
Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Thank you for being such supporters, not only of this segment, but the station. ThousandHillsLifetimeGraze.com, or go to your local co-op or Coburn's locations.
So biting commentary on what transpired last night via Vikes Bites, where the J.J. McCarthy move is polarizing by many respected National Football League analysts. He's a quarterback, of course, and that has a lot to do with it. And we will hear from the likes of Bill Belichick and Dan Orlovsky and Scott Van Pelt and some of their quick twitch reaction coming up here shortly. But the Alabama edge at 17, that's the one insiders, just a couple of them, are telling me, like, quote, incredibly fortunate you guys found him at 17. And the common thread word that I'm getting from last night through today is circumstantial. Dallas Turner is a member, I'll read a part of the text here momentarily, but well-respected defensive coaches from around the league are like, it's the way it fell with the 14 consecutive offensive players and the tight end dropping 4 or 5 spots below where anybody thought. Penix Jr. sliding into 8. I mean, it may be forward thinking, it may be enterprising, it may eventually work for 10 years. There's nobody who expected that or saw that coming. And I'm talking around the National Football League with those behind the scenes. So circumstantial scenarios led the Minnesota Vikings to that edge. But what in the heck happened last night? That was so crazy. And good morning, boys.
And thrilling, right? I mean, who's not jacked up?
Good morning.
I mean, I bet half of our listeners didn't get a normal night of sleep.
Yeah.
The adrenaline flowing, the excitement. It's so different to have the Vikings come out of a draft in which they traded up at all, but then identified their guys, went and got them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand mathematically trading down and accumulating picks makes a lot of sense. You get more chances to get things right. Mm-hmm. But man, does it feel good to identify your guys and just go get them. And it's not like the Vikings don't have any more picks. They still have 1, 2, 3, 4.
I will take a look at the 2025 calendar.
They still have
somewhere
6.
late in the season.
Well, okay. They got 6 this year. I think they're sitting at 4 for next year.
Yeah, I think
but they're going to get the Cousins compensatory pick.
Ooh.
They're going to get a tampering pick from the Falcons.
Well, we'll see about that.
I think the Falcons know it, and I think the Vikings know it, and I think it played in to the Penix decision.
Very well could have. Now, the producer, Eric Nordquist, during the presentation last night, he was running the 64686 stable from Chaska, and he texted me, was it after the Jags pick, the trade with the Jags, about the overpay?
Oh, well, I think it was somewhere in between where I asked you about moving up to 10.
Right.
And it was just, playing that game of the Jets are sitting here with that carrot, and they're saying, you know, other teams are calling us, Kwesi. Other teams are calling us. You better do something.
Well, I went hunting for that answer after you sent the text and after the draft show and everything. The way I crafted it here was Nordo texted me wondering last night if we went to overpaying with these trades. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Now, when it comes to, it's like in hindsight, it really comes down to, from what I understand, what you believe the Denver Broncos and Las Vegas Raiders wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I mean, as the team would go, Bursich with wonderful work, but I really want to praise for those of you who didn't listen. I mean, you and Ben Lieber, man, you guys were so on it with your instincts last night.
It was a great show last night.
Thanks, bud. Forget the February, March, early April predictions and, you know, what I'm seeing so much on Twitter now, and you see it just so frequently. People like quote tweeting things they said months ago. Told you, J.J. McCarthy here. Told you this. Forget all that. It's the on the spot when it's falling in front of you and it's weird. And then, like, you know, you to a certain extent playing the role of the foil, but also analytically laying it out beautifully right at the beginning of the show, laid out this beautiful plan of, well, you know, let's take a peek at a quarterback, Drake May or J.J. McCarthy, specifically those two, and potentially being available around 11. Well, that's what happened, and I'm glad you laid that out. And then 15, 20 minutes before the trade, Lieber's going nuts on the jet spot. Like, hey, this spot right here, this is a key spot. A-Rod is closer to the end than the beginning, so you got that, and they could get weird, but probably not. But now you got to start thinking about A, B, and C moving up into that spot. And then and you'll hear this later, we interviewed Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the general manager for the Vikings from U.S. Bank Stadium. And he intimated that there's a little warfare for that 10 spot, something like that.
I specifically asked. I asked, did you talk to the Jets, and did the Jets tell you they had other suitors?
Oh, there we go.
And Kwesi said Joe Douglas, the general manager he just said Joe, but he means Joe Douglas, the general manager of the Jets.
Right.
Made it clear that there were other teams interested in moving up to that spot.
Yeah.
That would have been the Broncos, and that could have been the Raiders.
Right.
And I believe it. I mean, given that Denver went Bo Nix that early.
Right.
Yeah. I can't imagine a scenario where they had Bo Nix rated higher than J.J. McCarthy and would have easily paid whatever it would have taken to move up a couple of spots.
So Nords, the answer to your question, from what I understand, is yes.
Yeah.
There was some overpaying.
Absolutely.
With if you lay them out, like who got what and how many and what we got.
You play the charts game.
Yeah.
Or the charts, not the Charch game, the charts game.
But it's Chartza now because you got the antiquated Jimmy Johnson bit. But Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah with the Cleveland Browns, while in the analytics department, basically developed a new age chart that a lot of people around the National Football League use. Well, it's not cutting your nose off despite your face. Because, like, hey, you're looking at your own chart, and it's like going minus. But I woke up this morning not caring about any of that. When you find a quarterback that they covet, and I would believe it was their second quarterback if you were to lay them out, like how they rank them and stuff.
Right.
And Nordo made a lot of pertinent points the last few weeks about the difference between selecting the guy and a guy. And I mean, if the guy is going to be just one person, then perhaps that didn't happen. But that doesn't mean the guy cannot be close in ratings or rankings or thought to the next the guy or a guy. And that's what I believe what happened with McCarthy. His reaction to being a Minnesota Viking was priceless. If you haven't seen that on video,
it's great.
He knows he's probably not. Well, no, let me put it this way. He ain't looking at it like they're going to sit back and let me simmer and grow. No. I mean, you could just tell that man's ready to come in and compete and try to win that job. I'd make him a fat plus on the money side to win the job week one. But that video was fantastic. And in biting fashion, I'm still just mesmerized after now what I know about Dallas Turner from those who coach defense for other teams in the NFC or the NFL. And they're basically like, this is unbelievable that happened. It's like one person said the farthest that any of us saw him dropping was 15. Now, I'm not going to say obviously who they were or where they picked, but these people were not in a position to get up there and capitalize on this situation. So whether it's an overpay or none of that matters to me at this moment. I don't know about you guys.
It doesn't matter.
I'm just like, what happened last night?
The key to this for me, and I asked you that because I'm interested in we see those videos like Monty Ossenfort got some play on social recently for this bing, bang, boom calls in the midst of it. And, they're under fire and they're on the clock. So I'm thinking last night, and that's why I texted you that. Like, you think they got to hoodwink it a little bit, like using the leverage of Sean Payton lurking behind them. But in the end, if J.J. McCarthy, it's the same conversation we had about moving up for a guy. And for the most time leading up to this, it was moving up a lot to get said guy, 3 or 4 or wherever.
Wow.
When the guy turns out, you're never going to care what you gave up to get there. And from this standpoint, analytically, statistically, Kwesi did indeed overpay. But in the end, if it turns out quality over quantity, I don't know how you can complain about that. And Charch hit it early, whether it's and we can get to that Falcons discussion because it's juicy with Kirk and not knowing and all of those things. But did they make that move because they know there's going to be a forfeiture of a pick in 2025, so they won't have a pick to get that guy next year from a quarterback standpoint? The Vikings, per over the cap, do indeed have what appears to be a third-round selection compensatory style coming their way because of losing Kirk in free agency. At least that's how the math works. In the end, they identified a QB that was their guy, the guy, according to KOC, not a guy. So there was no settling. We're not playing the terminology semantics game as we were discussing yesterday.
But off that, if you are led to believe, or you truly believe in your heart, Drake May was the quarterback they wanted.
Which I do believe.
Yeah, which I do believe too. So
above all else, absolutely.
But now, it's whether it was from social media, some things you said early in the draft show that you saw that I didn't see, that like Elliott Wolf and the New England Patriots, they ain't moving.
They're not moving.
And it's like, it's 3 first-round picks or more, and then they probably would like move. So continue. So even if Drake was one with a bullet, it just seems truly like it was unattainable.
Well, and I think for the last 3 months, we've been on it on this show, PA, chatting about McCarthy and May and McCarthy and going back and forth. And so getting that guy where you got him, late round picks, quality over quantity, okay, without having to move up to 3.
Yeah.
And then you do move up, you do flip the 3rd and the 4th. So that hurts when you're just staring at a piece of paper and looking at 2025 available draft picks. There's no doubt about that. You did overpay. And then you just walk away with the best pass rusher in the draft. And so the quality over quantity angle and all of that goes into it, again, from expectations and what you were able to do, Kwesi very, very well could have done what the Buffalo Bills did. And they just bailed out of the draft and they're adding picks and all of those things. Kwesi's like, I need 2 guys that can potentially help this team early. And he walked away with, in my mind, 2 fantastic players and a scenario that I just did not foresee being part of the mix. So I was incredible. I was surprised at times. There were a couple other turning points in the top 10 that kind of and we can get to it, but Chargers going O-line. If they take Neighbors, does that entice the Giants or change the way they address 6? Like little bits like that?
Yeah.
But in the end, we walked away with 2 players I couldn't be happier about. I never saw Dallas Turner as an option.
No.
So historically long run of offensive players combined with making the right choices. I saw Thomason tweets. Thomason tweets are still HOF, by the way.
Yes.
He was quoting Peyton apparently last night during his conference because they're super excited about Bo Nix.
Of course they are.
He spent most of last night pretending to want to move up in the draft.
Oh, wow.
Peyton said that himself last night. He
on.
was pretending that they were going to move up.
Come on.
He got us, guys. He got us. And all the while, he was just able to sit at 12 and get his guy. Get his guy, Bo Nix. He's loved him since minute 1.
Okay.
So, but in the end, I think Vikings fans should be elated that they're waking up this morning wondering, when are we going to get to hear from J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner?
We felt that with the thousands at U.S. Bank Stadium last evening. It
was elated, J.J. McCarthy. We've gotten just snippets of video that he's cut already since being drafted by the Vikings. He already had his Vikings sweatshirt. He had the Vikings hat all ready to go. And he calls this the perfect landing spot for himself. Now, granted, a lot of players say those kinds of things, but it resonates here a lot better than it would have had he dropped to a different team.
But off that, you're going to hear shortly, Jim Harbaugh, coach of the Chargers, asked at his press conference, hey, your guy went to the Vikings, and I'm not going to step on the touchdown call, but he part of it was that's where his heart was.
Yeah, how
so
about that?
You'll hear that momentarily.
I believe it. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, look at all the places guys went. Is there a situation for a QB? Not even the whole team in general. Is there a better day one situation for one of these rookie QBs that were selected last night to come into and potentially flourish and get the most out of them than the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, Drake May's got to be happy he went top 3. Jaden Daniels goes number 2. Caleb Williams, of course. Well, actually, that's not a bad situation as they got Rome Odunze at pick 9. Mm-hmm. But in the end, offensive scheme, opportunity with weapons and all of those things, who wouldn't want to play here? I find genuine. I find that to be true and genuine. Don't you, Charch?
Vikings are almost historically an elite spot for a quarterback to drop into because of all of the help around J.J. McCarthy. It doesn't often happen that a team is this ready to drop in a rookie quarterback and have that kid perform with all the tools around him, including the head coach, which is no small part of this, in a very pass-heavy, quarterback-friendly offense than what J.J. McCarthy found himself in at pick 10. So he gets to be a top 10 pick. He didn't have to fall to the bottom of the draft and maybe be a third-tier talent that you're reaching for at the bottom of the first round where you might find a team that's built well enough at the bottom of the first round to have these kind of tools. The Vikings with all the receiving talent, the bookend tackles, and a coach who raised Kirk Cousins' play pretty much every season and got him to the point that where he was playing the best football of his career. Now we'll find out what we can get out of Kevin O'Connell as he works with J.J. McCarthy and hopefully gets him to improve every year and puts him into a spot where he can be at least as productive as Kirk was in time.
Some biting takes coming your way now from a National Football League analyst as part of Vikes Bites right out of the gate, and that's provided by
Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef.
Carry us through it. What do you have?
Well, I'm going to start with something that you sent me this morning. It's Dan Orlovsky just a couple of days ago, so pre-draft, and his thoughts on J.J. McCarthy specifically as it pertains to matching with the purple.
During one of Michigan's games, I tweeted out, J.J. McCarthy is going to look awesome as a Viking. One of the things that I've become frustrated with is people talking about him like he doesn't have remarkable arm talent, like remarkable ability to throw the football. And in the play-action pass game, which is what he ran a ton in Michigan and what he would run a ton at Minnesota, I think he's the best in this class when it comes to operating that stuff, seeing the defense and playing with multiple personnel and making some of those difficult throws. This is against Washington, 21 personnel, 2 back, 1 tight end. Minnesota's going to run this, the dagger concept, the deep cross in and in. Now this backside tight end is going to block. JJ has to play fake and see that backside safety. If he bites down, we want to throw the crosser. Ball fake happens, you see it, get his eyes to that back safety right now. Okay, so that creates vacant space. Now find that middle field safety to make sure he's not overlapping too much. One hitch and let the ball loose. Look how in rhythm this is. One hitch and cut that ball. Now, that backside safety is already turning and running. He's got to throw this ball to that small window right now. That is outstanding play action pass operation, mechanics, and execution. That's not just that's not the highlight clip. That's all over his tape.
Yeah.
That's all over what Minnesota what the Vikings want to do with Kevin O'Connell. So when it comes to, can we take a guy that's incredibly talented? He was the 5th ranked quarterback coming out of high school. Okay, it wasn't like this guy came out of nowhere,
right.
All right? Incredibly physically talented, and put him in a place and he's going to go. I would tell you this. If Minnesota takes him, he is the by far early favorite for offensive rookie of the year.
Wow.
With the talent that they have in the scheme, it's the ideal place for him.
Doesn't that feel good?
And that was before the draft, right? You said?
Yeah.
That was before the
pre-draft.
draft. Yeah.
Wow. Hey,
How about
Dano.
that? Now check this out. So JJ goes to the Minnesota Vikings last night, and he joins SVP on ESPN right after the conclusion of the first round.
I mean, there's not much.
Oh, hang on.
I never believe anything anyone tells me from the NFL because there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, which I get. But it's interesting. I spent a little time with your now head coach down at Augusta at the Masters, and we were talking about quarterbacks because he played it, and it was clear that maybe they might want to take one. And your name came up, and it was obvious that he thought a whole lot of you. But I'm curious when you got a sense that maybe Minnesota had zeroed in on you as someone that they might make a pick like this on. When did you know?
To be honest, I really didn't know Scott. It was just, great interactions with Coach O'Connell, Kwesi, the Wilf sons, just being able to be around them in Schembecker Hall. I felt like I could really be myself. So, just putting it all out there and doing the best I could that day just gave me ultimate confidence that, I left it all on the table and it was up to them. And, I just can't thank them enough for having faith in me and believing in me. And I promise I won't prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them right.
So when I talked to your coach after you guys won it all, we talked about 144, and obviously Jim goes to the league, and now you do as well. I'm interested, JJ, in what it meant for you to hear that guy bang the drum like he did for you, right? He's going to have to compete against you now that you guys are both in the league, but he was as big a fan of what he believes you'll be in the NFL. To have heard him say that about you meant what?
It meant everything, just because everything he was able to accomplish at the University of Michigan and at the next level, hearing that praise come from him means the world. And, Coach Harbaugh isn't just a coach at the end of the day. He's a second father figure to a lot of guys, and he was that for me. And, I thank him from the bottom of my heart. I wouldn't be here today in this situation without him and, the rest of the coaches, Coach Moore, Coach Campbell. And, I just can't wait to prove him right, just like Coach O'Connell. And, I just can't wait to just, be able to see him, across the sideline one day and, see him on his hands and knees, ready to get after it. And, I'm just thrilled to be able to be in this position today, and it wouldn't be without him.
Yeah, I'm with that, Coach Connell.
And speaking of Harbaugh, so Harbaugh, as he mentioned, ever since, I think it was even prior to becoming head coach, then he becomes head coach, there were talks about, hey, you know what, trade Justin Herbert and then draft J.J. McCarthy. And Harbaugh's been all over this at the Combine leading up to the draft. After J.J. gets picked, Harbaugh's asked about McCarthy at his own draft press conference.
Coming in here, but just thoughts on J.J.?
I stayed and watched it. Thrilled that I've been having a conversation with J.J. That's where he wanted to go. That's where he had his heart set. I'm just so happy for him. Love him like a son, and I'm just, I was praying and pulling for it to work out the way he wanted it to work out, and the stars aligned. And congratulations to Minnesota. They got themselves a great player.
I mean, in closing, when, if ever, does any of this happen to us? Circumstantial scenarios leading you to the best edge rusher, according to those in the NFL.
Steal of the draft thus far.
SOD is what people are calling it. Well, yes, but circumstances had to transpire. And then from Jim Harbaugh to Dan Orlovsky before the draft, and J.J. McCarthy with some things he said. You'll hear Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell later, 9 to noon from last night. There also is a press conference today at 2 o'clock, and all the constituents will be chatting. But when, if ever, can we recall something like this happen to the Minnesota Vikings,
Never.
Right.
I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We've never had a first round like this.
Right.
And, we've had other first rounds. We've taken a quarterback. Haven't had one where we've taken a quarterback in the top 10 ever before. That's a first time.
Yeah.
We've had other drafts. We've had 3 first round picks, but it never felt like this does, where you get hopefully your quarterback of the future, and then you go get a defensive stalwart who has slid to you a good 10 spots lower than he should. That's just Viking fans deserve this. We deserve this. Organizationally, we haven't had many opportunities like this. We have been so steadfast in our loyalty to this team. We deserve the opportunity that has been presented to us through this draft. Do we know if it's going to work out? No. Maybe we're going to look back and it's all going to sound like crazy talk because these guys don't end up playing. But what we have is real reason for optimism and a sense that there's real direction and purpose to the decisions being made at TCL.
That was beautiful. And, you heard some clips there. And when we return, Bill Belichick was with the Pat McAfee show during the draft. And his analysis we're going to hear of J.J. McCarthy is fantastic. That plus much more coming your way 9 to noon today. From a guest standpoint, the super well-respected Jordan Reed, draft analyst for ESPN. He joins at about 10 o'clock. The man guiding at least locally, the J.J. McCarthy bandwagon is a man we had at the feast last week named Thor Nystrom. He'll be on in the final segment of the radio show. We are set to howl this evening. That makes it into the mix. Wolves at Phoenix in the playoffs. And with Paul Charch, and I'm Paul Allen, Nordo produces. Welcome to the Friday Football Feast, courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. And also, money picks last night. Grand in your hand right now.
The Fan, along with BigDeck.com, want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword happy. Are you happy? Whether it's with the football team or winning $1,000, the keyword is happy at KFAN.com.
9:35. It's the Friday Football Feast. And a good morning to everybody. Welcome to the Love Covenant, PA and Charch feasting on FM 100.3 KFAN. Bill Belichick, the most accomplished coach in the history of the National Football League, had some very telling things to say about J.J. McCarthy that you will hear momentarily. During Vikes Bites, I said that I had some messages from some NFC coaches involving Dallas Turner, and the common thread word was circumstantial. Unbeknownst to the individuals, in that circumstances played into Dallas Turner, the edge from Alabama, being available where he was. And one NFC defensive coach texted me and said, are you kidding me with that kid at 17? He was one of my favorites in the draft. He had the ideal skill set of any edge I watched in the draft. He's going to need coaching and development, but y'all hit a home run with that one. Another NFC defensive coach who's been at it at a high level for several decades texted, quote, he never should have made it past 15. Aside from what everybody can see, explosive athlete with rare ability to bend and close to the quarterback, blew us away with his football IQ. The attention to detail and how he sees defense. They obviously are well coached at Alabama, but that detailed knowledge of pass rush was far beyond anyone we talked to this year. Versatile, can rush from anywhere. So you J.J. McCarthy for now, for show, but this selection, the Dallas Turner selection, may have been you Dallas Turner for dough in the 2024. It just feels like it's a massive home run, Charchy.
It does feel like a home run. It's a player that I didn't think would be available for the Vikings at 11 if they ended up holding that pick. If JJ had gone earlier, I'd have been delighted with Dallas Turner at 11. We'd be talking about him as an impact player that would make an immediate difference on this team, and nobody would have batted an eye at 11. So to get him 6 spots later after your hopefully franchise-changing quarterback is absolutely thrilling. There's so much to like about this kid, and I think a lot of Viking fans are pulling up video on Dallas Turner and highlighting, and they're hitting YouTube right now.
And the highlights are good.
The highlights are staggering. I mean, when you look at only the highlights.
So he's a 4-4 edge. He runs a 4-4 40. Wow.
Yeah. I joked during the show last night. He's our backup running back.
Right.
I'm ready to give him handoffs. Yeah. There's minor medical concerns.
We quit on
serious.
Ty Chandler.
Yeah.
I mean, you flipped on Kirk after all the Take That Kirk hater tweets for a half decade, and you flipped on him. Well, now you're done with Ty Chandler, probably because of the ever improving pass protection. But anyway,
yeah, there's so much to like about Turner.
Ty Chandler.
You're way more plugged into a lot of people around the league than I am right now. But I had somebody attached to this that said that in any other year that wasn't this crazy offense-laden draft. We only had 9 defensive players go in this draft.
In the first round.
Just
round.
9.
It's an NFL record.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 23 offensive players. I think the previous record was, let's say, 20, 19, 20, something like that.
That's good
amazing.
Intel, boys.
Any other year, Dallas Turner would have been a top 10 player in virtually any other draft. So, that's it was it was an amazing opportunity for a player that's going to immediately fill the biggest defensive need that the Vikings have. Now, let me ask you this relative to Dallas Turner.
Yeah.
As it turned out, the way that the draft dropped, the player that many people thought was the best cornerback in the league, also a very big position need for the Vikings, would have been available at 23.
Yeah.
And that is Terrion Arnold,
right?
The cornerback that ultimately Detroit traded up to go get.
Yeah.
So given what the Vikings gave up to get Dallas Turner, which was, what, a fourth and a fifth, right? And they got a sixth back?
It was a third, a fourth, and a fifth.
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you. Third, fourth, and fifth to get Dallas Turner. Would you rather have had Dallas Turner lose those picks or stood pat and gotten Terrion Arnold, who I would have been totally fine with at 23?
Right.
What do you think?
Same here, but we discussed it a little bit on the show last night, and it's kind of age old with me. Where you lose Danielle Hunter, okay, so that's a massive pass rushing loss. You replace it and supplant to a certain extent with Jonathan Grenard from the Houston Texans. But I'm into get the rush guys, and then the corners will take care of themselves. So like Lester Hayes, Darrell Green, Deion Sanders, whomever, which at cornerback du jour, if they didn't have the right type of pass rushers, who knows what would have happened to their careers. But
let's say if you're putting Grenard, let's just fill the holes here. You're filling the Danielle Hunter spot with Grenard.
Yeah.
Well, how are you feeling? And I know he only played 4 games. It was an absolute bust here. But how are you feeling? And him, Marcus Davenport, who you relied upon. That is a roster spot that you relied upon for pass rush.
Oh yeah.
And DJ Wanham,
right?
Who also now last year he gets injured, but all the same, you know where I'm going here. You kind of and Andrew Van Ginkel can't fill both of those spots, right?
But Van Ginkel fills a spot those two may not be able to do.
Well, I agree that there are talents that he has that we're very excited to have here in Minnesota. But I'm just looking at, okay, Patrick Jones, a lot of opportunity, hasn't busted out. Like what does the depth look like on the defensive front?
Right.
Even with Kwesi's free agency spending spree. And so I personally, yes, in the end, I would certainly be happy with a great corner in those picks. That tells me exactly where they see their pass rush at this point in time, though. The value of getting that elite of elite guys in the building, at least in terms of this particular draft. I'm super happy that they went with Dallas. I would prefer getting a standout on the D-line than a corner.
And I'm happy Nordo found a clip last evening with Bill Belichick on the Pat McAfee show.
He's human.
During the course of the draft. And then, I don't know if it was before or after the Vikings took J.J. McCarthy, but here's what Bill Belichick, some stuff he had to say about J.J. McCarthy.
I mean, there's not much to not like about McCarthy. I mean, one thing is the question is his weight. You know, he weighed in at 202 and then 219. You know, he's somewhere in there. You know, we'd like him at 219, not 202. But again, this guy's got a quick release. He can get the ball out. He reads coverage as well. He's just got a lot more experience than.
And they huddled up too, Coach. Is that a big deal? Like I know Nick Saban was talking about playing him. They actually huddled and did all that, and his defense was not used to seeing that.
And he plays under center. You know, he isn't in a shotgun all the time, so he can handle under center. He can handle the play action passes, turn his back to the quarterback. But here he is getting the ball out quick. If you run this back for a second, Foxy, this is
Foxy.
This is Chop Robinson coming off the edge here, and look at how quick McCarthy gets the ball out here. I mean, to get it out and have it complete and have a 10-yard gain when he ends essentially unblocked, like that's pretty good. He has good ball security. I know he had the 2 pick sixes against TCU in a championship game, but I would say overall, like this guy, it's 3rd and 10. You know, he's going to protect the team. He's not looking to turn the ball over and say his ball security.
Shot put a ball down the field right there.
This is a 2nd and 10 play. Again, another quick throw. Now it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2.
Get back on track.
Those plays help your offense. You know, again, taking a profit. You know, every play's not going to be an 80-yard touchdown. You know, he's good to make good completions, good solid plays. Here he throws on the run. You know, puts the ball right on the money. Good solid 10, 12-yard gain. Like, you need those plays in the NFL. Now, if you want to run the ball with this guy, he's a good runner and he's tough. So here
Sneaky
he's on this.
Athletic.
Yeah, here's the sweep. You know, he does a nice job of reading the hole here. You know, and this is really a good run game decision. So it's an RPO. He's reading the rotation coming down to the right side here. And so instead of handing the ball off, or to the left side rather, instead of handing the ball off here, he sees Isaac take it, pulls the ball down, and then, again, good solid run. He just makes good decisions. 4th and 1, this is really a good play. They run the little rollout here, and everybody's covered. He's got nobody to throw to. He's 6-7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Got to get the first down, and makes a good run. Yeah. I'm not saying this guy's a better runner than Jaden Daniels, but he just makes good decisions, and is definitely good enough.
Double B, Bill Belichick talking about our guy.
How about that?
J.J. McCarthy.
He's tracking it.
Right. And as we go here, it's quite polarizing with what transpired with the Minnesota Vikings last night. But league-wide, the Washington quarterback, the Southpaw, being drafted 8th by the Atlanta Falcons, that's the first-round A topic. Around the National Football League and with football talking heads. For instance, Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network said, quote, I just reached out to Kirk Cousins' agent, Mike McCartney. He was not given a heads up. Kirk Cousins was not given really a heads up on this whole thing.
Yeah, I got the audio, and they're just sitting there. Here, I'll play it. It's about 30 seconds long.
I still can't believe the Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr. That has nothing to do. I am such a huge fan of that kid. I want nothing but success for him. He is incredible. But they just signed Kirk Cousins to a 9-figure deal.
I just reached out to his agent, Mike McCartney. I'm sure Ian's talked to him as well, but he was not given a heads up. Kirk Cousins was not given really a heads up on this whole thing.
So he's sitting at home and just hearing Michael Penix Jr.'s name called.
Oh, my God. Kirko, chill.
Even more amazing, he's on his way to the draft party to sign autographs in his car when he finds out.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. You have to tell your quarterback what's going on.
The social media reaction from, as they would say, Falcons Twitter involves social distortion. We will get into that and more around the corner. It's KFAN.
Oh, my God. Kirko, chill.
Michael Penix Jr. to the Atlanta Falcons at 8. What an astounding move. Chided nationally by the negatives. The fan base seems to be killing the birds. And when the guy plays, I mean, seriously, with Michael Penix Jr., I mean, when he plays, he's going to collect paychecks and Social Security, given his age. And the general manager, Terry Fontenot, I mean, he was riffing and talking about it and spitballing about Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk's our quarterback. Everybody knows that. But he's like, if we have to wait 4 or 5 years for Michael Penix Jr., I'm like, bro, I mean, don't you mean 1 or 2 or 2 or 3 max? 4 or 5, he's going to be 30.
He'll be 28 when Kirk's contract expires.
Holy cow. So I couldn't believe when I was hearing that. And the video of General Manager Terry Fontenot, it's available all over the internet. Chatting with the owner in the war room makes it look like he was explaining this selection to a man named Arthur Blank in the face. I mean, the owner just didn't get what it seemed like he didn't get what was happening. You heard Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network, the previous segment. Cousins had no idea. His agent was willing to make that public through Jeremiah. And so that's where this is with Michael Penix Jr., just an astounding first-round pick, Charch.
This is now very specifically not saying this is going to be the worst pick in the history of the NFL. I mean, the Vikings had a first-round pick for a player who never even went to practice, let alone played a game.
Who, Demetrius Underwood?
Demetrius Underwood. Yeah. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, on its face, just the selection itself is the most inexplicable selection based on where it was at the 8th pick of the draft. I mean, typically the 8th pick of the draft is a player where if everything breaks right, he's going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's the level of upside of player. This isn't like a dart throw at 29.
They could have used Dallas Turner.
They could have really used Dallas Turner, right? Immediate impact guy.
Or you get Buzz, the Washington receiver, and give him a little help.
Wouldn't that be nice, right? I mean, Drake London might turn out to be okay, but that team needs receiver help. Roma Dunze, they could have done a lot of things here that would have offered immediate help. So why did the Falcons take Michael Penix? Well, one area of thought is the Falcons believe they're going to be picking at the bottom of the first round for years to come. They think Kirk is going to put them in a position where they're going to go make deep playoff runs, and they're going to be picking 25, 28, 30, maybe 32, right? Okay. So that's what they think. Yeah. And that doesn't lend itself to getting your next quarterback when you're picking at the bottom of the first round. So that's a possibility. Another possibility is the Falcons might already know they're losing major draft picks out of the Kirk situation and they're tampering.
I'm all in on that idea.
Wow. They may already know next year's first could be gone.
Yeah. They never even did a top 30 with Penix, by the way. Wow. So other than whatever phone or Zooms or whatever they did, it was not on the radar of anybody.
And to add some fuel to the fire about the notion that the Falcons may believe that they're going to lose picks because they tampered with Kirk, and they did. 99% chance they did. The Vikings traded away a lot of next year's draft. It's possible Kwesi is already under the belief that next year they're going to have some of the Falcons draft equity.
You guys are playing incredibly fast now, and I hadn't thought of that where I should have, but I'm tired. The work that I did was like, okay, there are two teams. I eliminated the Broncos from the equation. All right. And I stick by my J.J. McCarthy's team that I received before the combine involving the Broncos. I stick by that even with them taking Bo Nix. But I never caught Penix Jr. with the Broncos. Penix Jr. to the Raiders, I had heard a lot of for about a week. So now I start wondering, all right, if my belief is Drake May is number one with a bullet for the Minnesota Vikings, but he's going to be virtually unattainable at that third overall spot. Okay, so who was next? It's like, did Atlanta think the Vikings were going to jump up to 8 or jump up to wherever to try to get Penix Jr.?
Right.
Well, then that was shot down this morning by somebody locally who would know. So then, like, what about the Raiders? Were they? Well, I don't know if they were worried about the Raiders coming up. That's 1A for me. One is exactly what you guys just shared about the potential of what they're going to lose via this tampering clip.
One other thing is we ultimately will pause here shortly. Does Kirk sign the contract with Atlanta?
No.
If he knows that this is in the mix here, because I remember the drafting of a QB being part of the conversation about the Vikings in their process to re-sign Kirk Cousins and, kind of floating out, and I think Kirk's even said, team's got to do what's best for the team in the future, totally understand it, etc. I don't think, and that money's so big, maybe he signs it anyway. I don't think Kirk signs with the Falcons knowing that this was in the mix. So
I agree.
They had told him apparently that either this year or next year that they were going to invest draft capital in the future at that position.
Yeah.
No chance. He thought it was going to be pick 8.
Yeah, right. This year, pick 8, no chance.
And so, I look at Kirk. I'm sure, the dollar signs ultimately were part of the conversation in making that deal. Of course they were. But in the end, he's also a guy that wants to win games and thinking about whatever else that could have been at pick 8 to help him win games. I think he's stunned and devastated by this move by the Falcons. I'm curious if he'd even be there if they had told him before.
Paul, you know Kirk on a personal level that beyond most of us here. I think he really likes security.
Yes.
I think he likes the knowledge of what his situation is.
Yes.
I think he's been unfairly vilified in this among the fan base here is just in it for the money. I think he just likes stability, security, and this move flies in the face of all of that. And I really, it's a very valid topic. Would he have signed if he had known this was going to happen in 2 months? Would he have signed that deal in February or March? And I don't think he would have.
Let's pose that question to our first guest today, Jordan Reed, is a draft analyst for ESPN. Longtime card-carrying member of the Love Covenant. He's wonderful as a person and elite as a draft analyst. He joins